My favorite description of the modern Christmas festival, I think, penned by a Martian. Well, it's about a little boy with a drum, and he's born in a sleigh in some straw right next to some chestnuts roasting on an open fire. Yes, it appears a bit dangerous, but he's guarded by this enormous fat man in a red suit named Round John Virgin, standing by a tree with a partridge in it, drinking something called wassail. No, I'm not exactly sure what that is, and nobody here can tell me, but there's a lady kneeling nearby with a light over her head, and a couple of sheep, and a donkey, and a camel, and this really strange deer with an electric red nose, and a dog sleeping on top of his doghouse, while a crotchety old man is hoisting this crippled boy on his shoulder, who is holding a turkey by the neck and saying, "God bless us, everyone." Well, anyway, after they sing a while, they take all these packages and wrap them up in paper, which they then take right off again, and the little kids play with the paper, and the older kids say, "Is that all?" And the fathers sit in front of a picture box, and the mothers collapse in a chair, and 30 days later, they have a day called Visa Card Day, when everybody becomes really religious. They open little envelopes and say, "My God." It is an amazing mixture of commercialism, sentiment, idiocy, and faith, is it not? But now, with the running and buying over with and the plans for tomorrow relatively well in hand, now perhaps is the time to let it all go and come quiet and get to the heart of the matter, which is, after all, the message that, contrary even to the way it may feel at times, we are not alone in this old, cold universe. The maker of it all, the maker of each one of us, has come very near as one of us, so that we may know that we're not alone, never alone. No matter how hard the day and confused the way, no matter that the Christmas mood doesn't always come off as it should, we are not alone. And if we dig beneath all the glitter and clutter, the duties and distractions, and get to the heart of it all, the message that we are not alone, we will find there in that message new meaning and strength and joy. Helen Hayes tells of being in Cuernavaca one Christmas season, sort of trying to escape from it all after a death in the family. Happiness abounded in the town, Miss Hayes recalled, but she was an alien, alone on an island of grief and loneliness, until, in the solace and silence of an old Franciscan church, she found it. Christmas happened to her. God gave and God took away, she says, but my gift finally came as an oasis of peace in His presence and love. Or another writes about this time of year, "It was in my troubles that I think God finally came near, and I found comfort in the knowledge that He was there to help me when nobody else could. And a great grief has taught me more than any minister, and when feeling alone now, I find refuge in the Almighty Friend who is always there. And if this is experiencing Christmas, then I've done it. After my fit of despair, I seem to be braver and more cheerful and able to grub away at life with a good heart." The message. And the music. I mean, what would Christmas be without the music? Think of it. It's the only time of year when we all know the same songs. When tot and teenager and totterer can all sing together. For all the corruption of the holiday that we complain about, over it all, in fact, literally from the ceiling of the elevator and the mall, but truly permeating it all is the music that we share, evoking in the midst of the dreary season and dull routine something of hope and joy. But what shall we make of the music? That's the real question. Shall we let it be a brief escape from the realities of a tough world, a kind of sentimental sedative to lift the pains of life a bit? Or shall we really learn to sing it? For the music and the message belong together. They're of one cloth. This message calls not for speculation, but for song. And it is music that makes the message real in our hearts. For what does music do if we let it? It calls us out of ourselves, does it not? Our petty worries, our personal preoccupations. It enables us to transcend these into vital life and heart and joy. One church secretary up in Kelowna, British Columbia, got it even better with a typo. She was asked to print the words of the carol in the bulletin, and she did, except they read this way: "Good Christian men rejoice with heat and soul and voice." But that's why music and message are related, why they belong together, because to trust ourselves into the presence of God is to leave self behind for a few moments and sing ourselves into His strength and joy. Randall Vandermeer writes, "Song is a wonderful thing. For me to praise God or you or anything sincerely, I must let go of my needs. I must be captivated by the glory of something so much bigger than I am." And I suspect that's why the Bible commands us to sing, to be precise, 149 times. 10 commandments, 149 calls to sing. That ought to tell us something. And it's there in spades in the story of this night. Zechariah hears that he's going to be a father and he bursts into song. Mary hears that she's going to be a mother and she sings, and the angels sing, and Simeon sings, and Elizabeth sings, and everybody sings. Because singing is movement outside our safety and security into trust in God, into trust in the message that we are in fact not alone. Children are a whole lot better at this than we are. They're more spontaneous and less careful and defensive and less afraid of making a fool out of themselves. Louise Thomas tells of a very precious moment one year. She was rather mechanically hanging Christmas decorations, and then she stepped out into the darkness to view the effects of the lighted candles in her windows. As she did, she saw a mother and a child coming down the sidewalk, and the child was singing away in the tuneless way that children know to sing. Manger scene on the next door lawn was lit up, so when the child came by, she turned and crossed to the creche. Bending over, she touched every figure, and then she knelt on the cold ground, folded her hands in an attitude of prayer, and then bent over and kissed the baby Jesus, and then got up, and skipping away with her mother down the street, she sang her happy song, "Caught Up in Her Joy." Caught up in her joy. When was the last time that happened to you? And it doesn't have to be perfect, you know. Kids know that. They don't care. But we, with our self-conscious ways and our professionals on CDs, we sit inhibited and voiceless. One little 8-year-old asked to sing O Holy Night in the pageant, accompanied by her scarcely older brother. She had a passable voice, so the teacher let her, but it was all terribly off-key, and the result was only what could be called a musical train wreck. A parishioner sat next to a distinguished-looking white-haired guest who began to weep quietly during the piece, and so at the conclusion she whispered gently to him, "You must be the grandfather." "No, ma'am," he replied, "I'm a musician." It doesn't have to be that way. Perfection not required, to be caught up in the music of the message. And there's strength and joy in that, friends. Irina Ratushinskaya, now in this country, remembers her days in the Gulag in the former Soviet Union. She tells how on one Christmas we gathered around a little table and the words of the Lord's Prayer rang out in Lithuanian, Latvian, Russian, and Ukrainian. And Pani Yagvka divided up a communion wafer so there would be a bit for everybody. And then how did we end it all? We sang together, each in our own tongue, "Silent Night, Holy Night." And we, despite our various creeds and our very real misery, never doubted for a moment that God was with us, and we knew joy. Or there's the man whose duty called him away from his family one Christmas, And from afar he wrote them these words: "Once again the Christmas festival is upon us, but I must say on Christmas Eve I had a curious experience. I found myself looking forward to the evening, even here, with the eager suspense I'd known as a child. The thoughts that wandered to you, my beloved ones, were of course very yearning thoughts, but strangely no sadness assailed me, for I read again the Christmas story, as I'm sure you did, and sang all the songs that you were singing at home. And it became a lovely, quiet evening. One should do one's duty in earthly affairs, of course, but with greater trust in God, leaving the future in His hands. Caught up in the music of the message that we are never alone, not even this night, not even right now. There's strength and joy in that." So let's sing. It's the best part of our evenings together on Christmas Eve. You don't need your hymn books, really. We're only going to sing one verse of each one, and you know them all, at least. The first verse, don't you? First one, we don't know who wrote it, we don't know when it was written, originally in Latin, now translated into 40 languages. Some scholars think it may have been a primitive chant of the early church. In any event, it's still here. "O come, all ye faithful." Charles Wesley, along with his brother John, founder of Methodism, published together 4,000 hymns and left 2,500 more in manuscript. In fact, they have more hymns in our own hymnal than anyone else, 23 of them, if you can believe it. This is perhaps the most popular, "Hark the Herald Angels Sing." This next song has been known for 100 years as Luther's cradle hymn, even though it was unknown in Germany until we exported it to that country some time ago. It was actually penned by a minister in Pennsylvania. "Away in a Manger." You know, we really compress Christmas in this country. In European lands, the shepherds come on December 25th, and the wise men come 12 days later, on Twelfth Night, on January 6th. And this next carol was really written for the Twelfth Night celebrations. The First Noel, an English carol. We really don't know much about this next carol other than that it would be difficult to have a pageant without it. We Three Kings. I've been singing this next carol to you for about 25 years now because it's not well known in this country and you still haven't learned it. But I did in another country, and so I'll sing it for you. O du Fröhliche. This next carol is surely the most popular carol composed in this country, written in this country. Bishop Phillips Brooks, from early childhood, loved and memorized hymns, and when he was rector of Holy Trinity Church in Philadelphia, he traveled to the Holy Land and spent Christmas Eve there once in Bethlehem, and the memory so stayed with him that 2 years later, for the children of his Sunday school to use in the Christmas pageant, he wrote, O Little Town of Bethlehem. The story is familiar. In 1818, in the little village of Oberndorf in Austria, the bellows in the village church organ fail, and Father Joseph Moore, trying to make up for the lack of an organ for Christmas Eve, rummages around in his desk for a poem he had written a few years earlier, inspired by the sight of parishioners coming to midnight services on Christmas, rushes it to the home of Franz Gruber, the village schoolmaster and organist, and so the carol is born that many years later began to inch its way around the world to become undoubtedly the most favorite Silent Night, Holy Night.